There's a road on the outskirts of a small Appalachian town that everyone calls the Whispering Road. Locals warn never to drive down it at night, but one teenager, Jamie, thought it was just a stupid urban legend. One night, Jamie and his friends took the road as a shortcut home. At first, it seemed like any other dark, winding country road. But then the whispers started. Soft, indistinct voices came from the trees on either side. They laughed it off at first, until Jamie saw a figure standing in the middle of the road. A tall man in a wide-brimmed hat, his face obscured. They swerved to avoid him, but when they turned to look back, the figure was gone. That's when the car stalled. The whispers grew louder, now clearly repeating Jamie's name. His friends were panicking, screaming at him to start the car, but it wouldn't turn over. The last thing Jamie saw in the rearview mirror was the man's hat, this time inches from his window. The next morning, Jamie's car was found abandoned on the road, its doors wide open. The police never found Jamie or his friends. Locals say the Whispering Road claims the souls of those foolish enough to ignore its warnings. In the Midwest, there's a desolate stretch of highway locals call the Lost Mile. Truckers talk about a ghostly semi-truck that appears out of nowhere, tailgating drivers and forcing them off the road. One night, a man named Greg was driving home late after a long shift at work. He was the only car on the road when headlights suddenly appeared in his rearview mirror. At first, he thought it was another driver, but the lights got brighter, too bright. The vehicle behind him was massive, barreling down the road with its horn blaring. Greg sped up, but no matter how fast he went, the truck was right on his tail. Suddenly, the truck surged forward and rammed into the back of his car, sending him skidding into the ditch. Dazed but alive, Greg crawled out of the wreckage. He turned to face the truck, but it wasn't there. Just tire marks leading into the darkness, and they vanished a few yards down the road. Greg now tells anyone who'll listen, if you see a truck's lights on the Lost Mile, don't try to outrun it. In Arizona, there's a road called Route 366, infamous for the ghostly hitchhiker said to haunt it. One night, Sarah, a nurse working the night shift, was driving home when she saw a young man standing on the side of the road, his thumb out. He looked desperate, so despite her better judgment, she stopped. The man climbed into the back seat and quietly gave her directions. He never said much, only that he was trying to get home. As they drove, Sarah noticed in the mirror that the man looked pale, unnaturally pale. After a few miles, he suddenly said, "Stop here." Sarah pulled over to let him out, but when she turned around, the back seat was empty. No door had opened, and the man was just gone. Shaken, she sped home. Later that night, she checked her car and found a single handprint on the fogged-up rear window. Locals believe the hitchhiker's spirit is cursed, reliving the night he was killed by a hit-and-run on Route 366. Those who pick him up are said to see their own deaths in their dreams for the next 7 nights. Sarah never spoke about the man again, but her family says she never drove that road at night. Story 4. The Red Eyes in the Fog. There's a winding mountain road in Colorado known for its dense fog, especially during the fall. Locals call it Dead Man's Curve because of the sharp turns and the strange occurrences that happen there. One chilly October night, a college student named Kevin was driving home late after visiting his family. The fog was so thick he could barely see a few feet ahead. He slowed down, gripping the wheel tightly, when he noticed 2 red dots in the distance, like taillights. Assuming it was another car, Kevin kept driving carefully, but the lights didn't move. They stayed the same distance away, hovering just above the road. He honked his horn to alert the other driver, but the red lights suddenly vanished. Kevin felt a chill creep down his spine. That's when he heard a faint tapping sound on the roof of his car. Panicked, he sped up, hoping to outrun whatever was out there. But the faster he went, the louder the tapping became, as if something was crawling across the car. Suddenly, his engine sputtered, and the car came to a dead stop. In the silence, Kevin could hear heavy breathing right outside his window. Gathering his courage, he turned to look, and saw a pair of glowing red eyes staring directly at him. Kevin screamed and ducked down, fumbling with his phone to call for help. When he looked up again, the eyes were gone. The next morning, the police found Kevin's car abandoned near Dead Man's Curve. Scratches covered the roof and hood, as if something with claws had crawled over it. Kevin was found wandering a mile down the road, dazed and mumbling about red eyes in the fog. Locals believe it's the spirit of a truck driver who lost control on the curve years ago. His restless soul, they say, still roams the fog, looking for the next driver to join him in the darkness.